पॉलिसी बाजार पर 1 करोड़ रुपए का टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस केवल 450 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
Wow. Dr. NK Arora, the head of the COVID working group, chairman of the COVID working group of NTAGI, which is the National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization, joins us. Thanks very much, Dr. Arora, for being with us. The bottom line over here, is India likely to face the threat in terms of numbers which we are seeing in China now?
Thank you, Vishnu, for inviting me. Your first question is very important, and the response we are seeing in this country, which is a very preemptive and a proactive response, is primarily because there is huge opacity of what is happening in China. Opacity in terms of the cases which are occurring, the severity of cases, their vaccination status, and then the kind of variants, Omicron variants or the other variants which are circulating there. So this has led to the country and the whole COVID working group going in for a whole process of activating, so that at the last moment, or there should not be a moment where we scramble for our preparedness. And so all this activity which we are going in. Having said that, I would say there is no need to panic, because on one side is the preparation, but the most important thing is our genomic surveillance. Our surveillance is at the top of the whole activity, and we are seeing various subvariants which are circulating in India, and we find whatever filtered information we are getting, we need not be worried, because most of these which are reported from China have also been isolated.
But Dr. Arora, I think the question is this: given the fact that the information coming out of China is minuscule, is it your concern, as somebody who's really been studying this, that the primary variant of concern in China now is something we know very little about? It may not be the BA5 or BA7 or their sublineages. It could be something else.
So, in fact, just 48 hours ago, one of the international websites reported the prevalent variants which are causing the outbreak in China. And what we find is that it's a mixture.
I see.
And BF7 is only minuscule, only about 10 to 15%. Actually, there are two important series, BN series and BQ series. These together constitute about 50% of the isolates which are reported in that, which is called GISAT website. And then there is a small number of XBB, which
right.
is in fact the dominant way. XBB is about 10 to 15%. So overall, BF7 is not something which everybody is talking about. No, there is a mixture of various variants, and the variable proportion like we see, and almost all of these in some measure or the other, particularly I must say BF7 is minuscule, only 4 isolates so far since July. And then BN1 and BQ1 is also there, but they are also not too much, less than 2 or 3%. But the major thing which we are in India are seeing is XBB, which is about 70% of all the isolates we are getting on week-to-week basis for last.
And how dangerous is this, sir?
I see, for these variants behave differently according to local epidemiology.
Right.
And so in China today it is causing havoc because they are like naive. They have not been exposed to the virus before. The second equally important is that the vaccine which they got probably was not as effective. And I must tell you, most of them have got 3 doses or 4 doses of their own Chinese vaccines. Still, they are having this kind of very severe outbreak. While in India, we have the benefit of 3 things. One is that throughout first wave, second wave, and third wave, there has been exposure to natural infection. And the most recent, there is a very recent data which shows that in children below 12 years where vaccine is not given, 95-96% of children are positive for COVID exposure. Second, that 92 to 97% of our children, individuals between 12 to rest of the age have got at least 2 primary doses. So this gives us a very nice hybrid immunity. And many of us have also suffered, I'm sure, many of you within your close contacts also, more than one infection also. Yes. Positive infection. So
no, and Dr. Arora, I must tell you right now, this must be at least the 20th interview that we've done over the last couple of years, and I disagreed with you on herd immunity or natural immunity, but it appears that the lack of this in China, according to scientists, is a major contributory factor towards the illness spreading in that country. In other words, herd immunity or natural immunity is a big factor when it works alongside vaccines. I think this is a big learning tool for a lot of us, and indeed for scientists. I'm just a journalist. A lot of scientists around the world as well.
So I would refrain from the word herd immunity. No, herd immunity is a very complicated issue. I think we should refrain from. It is hybrid immunity. That natural infection, and on top of that, which has been supplemented with vaccination. When these two occur, and I must tell you, in 2 of our Indian states, which initially behaved, they had very strict lockdown and containment policies. And if you remember, in the second wave, for a long time, these 2 states continue to have a wave.
So Maharashtra and which other states are Kerala, right?
Kerala. So this is, so our own experience shows, so it was not something which it was like in a natural experiment which happened. And here in China, we are seeing actual what happens in practically when you don't allow the people to be exposed. And the other thing which this country did was in a graded manner, in a calibrated manner, the people were exposed. And therefore, and while vaccination was going on, and we see that we are one of the kind of very safe society today from a COVID perspective.
Okay, let's talk, Dr. Arora.
The type of virus circulating anywhere in the world.
Okay, let's talk about the nasal vaccine, Bharat Biotech. What is the science behind it, sir, and does it work?
So, first of all, it is a matter of pride that this nasal vaccine, India has succeeded. This is world's first. Although 2 vaccines were simultaneously given within a gap of 24 hours, but actually which has come for community use is the Bharat Biotech's Incovac. And the basic philosophy all over the world have a lot of people, more than 20 groups are trying to build this, make this vaccine, but they have not succeeded. This particular vaccine, we have seen the data. It provides a very interesting way of immunization. While it provides in-body immune system is kind of activated. That means there are circulating antibodies as well as T cells and other things. But the entry point is the respiratory system, nose, mouth, and my respiratory system, where it builds like roadblocks. The immune system builds up roadblocks here so that the virus is not allowed to enter so easily into the system. And there are specific antibodies which are secreted into these respiratory tract, and they provide this unique concept. And this is not going to help even only for COVID. All respiratory viruses, infections, this is a platform which will be very useful for many other viral
But sir, we don't have efficacy data as yet.
See, I must tell you, so we can keep talking about it. At this time, none of the vaccines can have efficacy data because it's an emergency situation. But what we have asked the regulators and the producer, that as the vaccine is rolled out, so the study which have been done is bridging study or immunological study, which shows it is compared to a standard vaccine, and here in this case it was compared with Covaxin. But as it is rolled out, simultaneously as phase 4 exercise, efficacy is also to be documented, and I hope that it will be done in a systematic manner, and a year's time we will come back with the efficacy of this vaccine also. And none of the vaccines can have efficacy data at this time.
Who should be getting this vaccine, sir?
Anybody above the age of 18 years can get this vaccine. It's very simple. 4 drops in each nostril. Total of 0.5 ml is to be administered, and that's it. And it has very little adverse events except some nasal blockage you may get for a short while. Otherwise, whatever the data is, it's extremely safe vaccine.
And so it has to be administered by a nurse or a trained person, right? It's not something you take home.
No, it is to be given at, see, one has to be always worried. The question is that with this vaccine, like any other vaccine, we need to wait for 15 to 30 minutes as we were doing it with other vaccines, so that in case there is a reaction, it can be taken care of immediately. Although there were no reports in whatever data we have seen, but one is always, as a precautionary measure, should be given. But the important point is, it's just like oral polio, which you are aware. So as our experience and confidence builds, this will be something which will be very easily administered anywhere in the community, at home and other places, just like polio.
All right. And sir, the price, I know en masse, when it's procured by the government, it's less. So will this rollout be free for people beyond a certain age, as we've seen in the past, in government dispensaries?
This question you should ask the health ministry. It's a program issue. I cannot answer this question. The ministry will answer that question. But I can tell you technically, this is a very good vaccine. And here I would like to add one additional point, that we have another vaccine, Carbovax, which is also approved for as a precaution or a booster dose. So now we will have a bouquet of vaccines, which is heterologous booster, which is considered better than homologous. So bulk of our population has received Covishield and Covaxin. 10% Covaxin, 90% Covishield. Now we have 2 vaccines which are heterologous, and we will be, the community can take either of these, and another 6 weeks or 8 weeks we should have 2 more vaccines.
And so hypothetically, sir, since COVID is now endemic, unfortunately, it's a fact, 6 months later, would people necessarily require another booster of the nasal drop? I mean, is this going to be a part of our lives going forward, is what I'm asking.
So you are asking basically, are we going to need repeated boosters?
Yeah.
That's the question you are asking.
Yeah.
And the scientific answer is that at the moment there is no evidence that further vaccines will be required or not required. Even in countries where people have taken 3 doses and 4 doses and 5 doses of vaccine, particularly these mRNA vaccines in North America and Europe, but they continue to suffer from infection. So the value of vaccine, even in WHO recent review, has not shown any positive benefit out of these.
And yet we are recommending this, sir. Why then are we recommending this?
So we are recommending it as only first booster. We are not recommended. So for example, SOM has received already a precaution dose. It is not recommended for you.
Got it.
If I have already taken a vaccine, no, I will not take it. It is for those who have not yet taken a precaution dose.
What if a person wants to take a second booster? I do.
Well, as far as program is concerned,
is there anything wrong with that? I know it's a fair question. I think a lot of people.
I will tell you. So as part of the program, no, the Covis will not accept a 4th dose. Now let us assume that you want to take another 4th dose. So there is a concept what is called as antigenic sin. Now this is a new emerging, that repeatedly if I am immunizing the person with a particular type of antigen, the body stops responding or responds poorly. And that is given one of the answers, that initially vaccine booster was given with mRNA at 6 months. Later on people are taking at 3 months, but it has not helped too much in that case. So therefore at the moment, taking another vaccine dose or additional 4th dose, there is no value of that.
And I can't get on COVID. It will not let me do it, right? That
is underlying baseline at the moment.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Dr. Arora. Wonderful to speak to you, and so many points over here. Didn't know that I couldn't get an extra dose, but thanks for telling me. Thanks very much indeed.